everyone, and welcome to the Sunday League podcast brought to you as part of our UK NFL Fantasy Football Network. I'm Samit Paul, and as always, I'm joined by TSL's co-host and co-commish, Jack Cowling. Jack, a calmer 7 days, I would say, compared to what we had last week, but the build-up to the season continues. How's things with you, mate?
Yeah, well, good. It's sort of talking about a different sport in America this week, isn't it? With the World Cup getting going and sort of seeing some of the dramas and things around that. So, I will be getting stuck into it kind of later this week. But otherwise, all good, mate.
I don't know if it's me being just miserably old in my age, but I'm not excited by this World Cup one bit yet. I don't know when it's going to kick in. I'm waiting for it, but it's a slow burner for me.
I know what you mean. I think once the games get going, it's one of those. It's a bit of a shame for us because obviously you can't do anything about time differences and things, but I quite like just always having the World Cup on in the background while you're working or whatever it is, and that's not going to quite work. But I was running a sweepstakes for the football team that I run, and I just couldn't believe how many teams, where you're like, Jesus, is there a country that's not in this bloody thing? And for me, I think we were talking a little while back when we were talking about the NFL, sort of traveling around the globe and all the rest of it. I'm a real stickler for I like real high quality and I get, you've got to spread the game and it's great for teams to get an opportunity, but there's a hell of a lot of fixtures that they're going to be quite a tough watch, I think. So, but as I said, I'm sure once it's here and somebody invites me down the pub for a beer to watch, Honduras versus Iran or something like that, then I'll probably be down there and get stuck in.
I was just about to say, I've circled Curacao versus Haiti.
Yeah.
2 o'clock in the morning, so can't wait. No, good stuff. So we've got a busy episode ahead as always. We'll play a game of Would You Rather as we look across the fantasy football landscape and give our thoughts on some draft decisions that could make or break your fantasy team. And we'll run through the big news over the past week and discuss the fantasy impact that all might have. But first, Jack, let's start with a game of Would You Rather, which sounds kind of ominous, but I'm sure it will be fun. We're going to speed through some of the more common ones we're seeing early in the drafts before mixing it up a little bit. And we'll go with the big one in round one of drafts that seems to be a reoccurring theme. While many will probably start with a quarterback or a running back in the opening couple of picks in dynasty leagues, it soon becomes a question of which elite wide receiver are you going to take off the board first. And those names are predominantly Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. All incredibly talented players who have shown that they're at an elite level above other wide receivers. I kind of used our UK SL1 league as a reference point here just to give an alternative opinion, just to see what others went for. Chase went at 1.4, JSN went at 1.6, and Nacua went at 1.8. Now, for me personally, I would absolutely agree with this one, as I would rather have Jamar Chase out of these three. I think it's all obviously health dependent. If you get a full season out of Chase and Joe Burrow, I just think he's going to have an absolutely monster year in fantasy. So Nacua and JSN, great players, prime for big seasons as well. But for me, it's going to be Chase. So who would you rather have, Chase, JSN, or Nacua?
I've had a slight change of mind with this one. I feel like I've been going on about his off-field concern every podcast that we've done up to date. But I think the Garrett signing, I just think McVay's going to be on it. I think that just paints a slightly broader picture, and I think they're going to be so committed to getting one or multiple rings over the next few years and really sort of kind of milking this crop whilst they've got it, that I'm going to go for Puka, and I think after the last few seasons, I think he actually probably deserves it. His target share, his efficiency. I think if you were to sort of span it over the last 3 seasons, he probably would come out number one out of all of them. Again, I haven't done that deep dive, but that's what I would imagine, just because I think Chase is probably still the best player. I do still probably go by that. And I think if Burrow was guaranteed to be fit, like you said, Chase would have a stronger argument. But for me, I've actually gone for Puka. And as I said, I think if I just park everything that I'm sort of envisioning potentially going wrong. And as I sort of say, this last week or two for the Rams really has kind of made me feel as though there is going to be no fallout. There is going to be total buy-in. This is going to be a well-oiled machine and such. And again, if it's dynasty, I don't know, maybe you start thinking about something slightly different because of Stafford's age and things like that. But I think even for the next couple of years, I think Puka is going to be the one to beat. So I've gone for him.
Fair. Aaron Donald talk doesn't seem to be going anywhere as well. So
No, yeah,
add
still
another
murmuring.
monster on that side of the ball. So yeah, interesting. Do you want to start us off with the next one? Would you rather have Ashton Genty, Jeremiah Love, or Amarian Hampton?
I found this really hard because, again, the more I sort of, just off the top of my head, it's Genty. I think he sort of improved as the year went on, and just feels though, I do feel he's a better talent than Hampton. I do feel as though he's got more in his overall sort of repertoire than Hampton. I like Hampton's situation, but I do think the Raiders aren't going to be not necessarily too far behind, but I think they're ascending and hopefully kind of getting things in order on that side of things as well. So yeah, I think Hampton's just a shade below that sort of elite tier of talent, whilst I think Genty's definitely there. Love's really exciting, and there was part of me, because again, the more you read, the more it kind of gets closer, the more sort of hype there does seem to get with him. But ultimately, I think I just want to see what he can produce and sort of what he does. So I'd rather go for Genty. What about you?
I've actually just put Love on the trade block in my league, so
Yeah.
I'm looking to shift him, see what offers I can field for him. But just again, as reference to start UKSL 1 league, Genty went at 2.2, Love went at 2.9, and Hampton went at 3.5.
Okay, that's quite late for.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah, I thought that as well. I'm going to go with Hampton.
Okay.
I agree with you. I fully expect a jump from Genty this season. Coaching staff, the Raiders working to improve the all-round offense. I think he will be a top player for the future. Again, echo your thoughts on Love, touted as a stud, stellar college career, big things expected of him. But I just kind of wonder what that process looks like with the Cardinals. Just how much work do they have to do to become competitive, put him in a position to really excel in a disgusting division where he could struggle with the defensive walls he's got to deal with there. But I just think there's a sense for me of a breakout season with Hampton. He had a good year last year, which was ruined by injury. But then again, like you mentioned, he's got the Mike McDaniel factor coming in, calling in plays as the Chargers offensive coordinator now. You hope he's got a fully healthy offensive line in front of him to act as a wall, so he can go break through the trenches and go crazy. And yeah, like I said, I just think prior to his injury last season, I thought we saw a lot of good things for him. So I actually went with Hampton in the end.
Nice. Yeah, and as I said, I think again he definitely showed a lot. I don't know if you listened to the Athletics football show, and just again there was a guy on there who was just kind of talking about a bit of the data around Hampton, and there was just not necessarily concerns, but there was just maybe a few sort of flags there that, again, some of the stuff they talk about, I don't, to be honest with you, quite understand exactly what they mean and such, but I think they were a little bit more reserved on him and such. And yeah, I'm easily swayed. So when somebody that's classified as an expert is telling me something, sometimes I put a bit too much weight on that. But I really enjoyed. I had Hampton last year. Really enjoyed him. He did well when he was on the field. And yeah, it's not like Genty was putting up huge numbers and things like that. So it's a close call, isn't it? Yeah, between them.
Let's just hope Love outshines them both for my sake.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see. Up next are the tight ends. So in the UKSL 1 league, we had Brock Bowers go at 2.6, Trey McBride went at 3.6, and Colston Loveland was the 3.12 pick. I'm going to agree with this and say that I would rather select Bowers. I still don't think much of the receivers for the Raiders. Injury knocked him off his stride last season as well. I think he's going to see a lot of volume, stack up yards and touchdowns this season and beyond. Just again, there's still a question mark for me over the Cardinals with quarterback Jacoby Brissett situation. I just don't know. I don't know whether he's going to get the time to scan the part of the field when he's got Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa, the Seahawks defense running at him. I really do like Loveland. I think there's a chance he actually emerges as the top dog there for Caleb Williams as a massive part of their passing game above the receivers. But it is Bowers for me. Would you rather have Bowers, McBride, or Loveland?
I'll go for McBride, and I definitely think the quarterback concerns are real. It seems like Brissett might potentially be going back with his tail between his legs and sort of, kind of turning up for the next camp and training and things. So it looks so. I think if he's there, if it's a rookie or somebody else, then again, I'd probably move off him. But I just think McBride, he's basically as productive as a tight end could ever be. Like, I think you hope to get from Bowers and what you really like, sort of praying that he can show and achieve is pretty much what McBride is now doing, has done for the last couple of years. I think McBride's sort of output and he's so clearly the number one there. And yeah, I just think all the metrics and everything like that. I just think it's one of those that why go for the guy that's sort of chasing the top when you can just have the guy that's at the top. And I know there's obviously a bit of an age gap, and again, dynasty, you may put a bit more weight into Bowers and things like that. But for me, I think McBride has really earned the right to stand alone, probably compared to every position. I would sort of say he's on an island, maybe the most. Again, I'm just trying to think, maybe Josh Allen, you might say that at quarterback. But obviously at running back, there's a debate. We've just had a little debate there about sort of the top wide receivers and things. I genuinely think McBride, until proven otherwise. And again, Bowers has shown potential, but as I say, McBride's now got that consistency and that resume where, he really is sort of god tier in terms of when it comes to tight end and tight end output and stuff. So I'd go McBride.
It was definitely a close call between the two. I just saw some comments from Ben Johnson a little earlier today, talking about Loveland. He's obviously bigging him up, saying he's a complete pro. He's constantly learning, looking at the playbook, and just physically. You expecting him to continue to build on what was already an impressive season last year?
100%. Yeah. And as I said, I think it was really encouraging that he was getting better as the year went on. And especially because they weren't particularly, I think it was Cole Kmet and things. They weren't like really short at tight end and things like that. And for him to keep increasing his usage, keep increasing his plays and target share and everything like that and delivering, I think he's going to be a baller. I think him and Bowers could be relatively similar. I think Bowers maybe is slightly better weapon still in terms of yards after catch and things. But I think Loveland could easily become a megastar. And obviously Warren, again, we'll sort of see what happens there because those two were so closely aligned, obviously coming out of the draft and everything like that together. So, Loveland, I think in terms of situation, he's got the best. I don't know if you'd agree in terms of the Bears, their sort of setup, their roster, their coaching staff, and everything like that. I think, he'll be in the strongest position to be showcased.
Yeah, totally agree with you. I think he's primed for a very big season. We're going back to the wide receivers for the next one. So I'll ask you first: would you rather have Malik Neighbours, Tet McMillan, or Drake London?
Tough one. I think. Again, I've spoken, how much I really rate London and how much I value him as a player, and kind of a little bit like the McBride and Bowers conversation I just had, where I think McMillan plays really similar to London. I kind of feel like he's a little bit of a London regen in terms of, big wide receiver, gets up in the air, makes the ball his own and such. So I think if it's redraft, I would go for London. If it's dynasty, I think it becomes out of McMillan and Neighbours, and I think with Neighbours injuries concerned, Neighbours is probably the fun pick, but I think McMillan's maybe the right pick. And I think because he was a real bright spot in a not overly sexy Panthers team and things, I am a little bit wary of catching myself of maybe bigging him up too much and kind of getting caught away with it too much. He was very good last year without being, exceptional and truly sort of groundbreaking. And like we've seen some from some young wide receivers and such. So I'm a little bit like, am I remembering him being better than he was a little bit, and again, when you look through the stats and things, but is he going to just be a bit more of that sort of 12 to 15 ranked wide receiver? Has he really got the capacity to break top 10, top 5 territory? I don't know. Whilst London, you'd say has a shot at being in around the number 5 sort of level, and Neighbours could be anywhere, in terms of that. But I think, as I say, if it was redraft, I'd go London. If it was dynasty, I'd probably put on my safety pants and go for McMillan.
So this was a difficult one for me, as Neighbours is obviously my guy, being a Giants player, and T-Mac became my guy from a fantasy perspective last season. I feel like I probably should just change my team name to My Guys. I think that's how I've gone about constructing my team. But honestly, I think if I'm making the decision right now, I might actually have to say London. In the UK SL1 League, Neighbours went at 2.7. London was selected at 2.10 and Tet was all the way back in 3.8. Again, if Neighbours comes back healthy and he's the Neighbours pre-injury, then I think it's clearly Malik. But we've got to see if that happens first and if him and Dart strike up that dangerous partnership that all Giants fans are hoping for over a consistent period of time. Tet is going to be a star. I think he can just keep building, incrementally improve, increase his fantasy numbers. But London is just by far still the top dog with the Falcons by some distance. Whether it's Tua or Penix Jr. wins that battle, he's still going to be the main guy for them. So I've spoken before about how weak that room looks beyond him and Kyle Pitts. So I'm gonna say London, I think, on this one.
Yeah, no, mate, he's a hell of a player, and obviously getting his new bag and everything like that, they're only going to showcase him more, aren't they? So
absolutely. So we're going to mix things up a bit now with some combos of players and continue with the Would You Rather theme. We're going to combine pairings, make our pick, and these are all surprise ones that we haven't discussed prior. So we'll be making a decision on the fly. We've also got some thoughts from our TSL crew to see if we're on the same page with them or not. So I'll start us off, Jack. Would you rather have Breece Hall and Zay Flowers or Bucky Irving and Garrett Wilson?
I don't know why I'm so nervous about these. I was thinking about it. I was like, crikey, what's he going to come out with? Like, what's it going to be? So Breece Hall and Zay Flowers or Bucky Irving and Garrett, did you say? Wilson?
Garrett Wilson, yeah.
I would go with Hall and Flowers, I think, for that one. I think, again, neither of them are sort of truly exciting, but I think Hall really is. Again, he's obviously signed a new contract this summer, and again, I was a little bit. Is this going to be his last year with the Jets? Are they going to kind of phase him out and things? But you'd imagine now he's really going to kind of get, the majority of the work there. And he does have explosivity. Again, he has injury concerns and things like that, but he's an explosive player. And Zay Flowers is just a really solid option. I think Garrett Wilson is probably a better player and would have a higher ceiling, but I think he's much more, and again, maybe not down to his own detriment, maybe it is because of the Jets, but he's just always been a lot more of an up-down player, whilst Flowers with Lamar, a pretty solid Ravens team, is, again, he never lets you down too much. He's just pretty reliable. So, and then Bucky Irving, I said I sort of shared a few concerns in terms of sort of temple rubbing with him. So I'd go Hall and Flowers with those.
Groove K17 said Hall and Zay Flowers. So he agrees with you. And Marcos said it's a slight lean, but I'd shoot for Breece and Zay. Bucky has a lot of competition and question marks coming into the season, and I'm not sure he'll get as much volume as he did 2 years ago. I like Wilson, but the Jets invested a lot of capital into the passing attack, which makes Wilson's volume in PPR less attractive. While Breece is the cornerstone of the run game with some passing upside, and Zay only has to hold off 2 rookies and an aging Mark Andrews for success. He's not got a great ceiling, but his high floor will give you a fighting chance week to week.
Nice, we all agree. My first one for you then, Samit. So I went for Lamar Jackson and Tucker Kraft, or Caleb Williams and Brock Bowers.
Nervously jotting down names.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. What did you say? How do you spell that?
Yeah. Right, so I am going to go Lamar Jackson and Tucker Kraft. I think Lamar, I think is primed for a big bounce back season. He was quiet by his high standards last year, so I think we're going to see him score heavily. And the injury concerns surrounding Kraft heading into the season, I think they're being allayed by the updates that we're seeing. I think he looks in good shape to start the season, and I just think he's also in a really good position with the Packers to be a really serious weapon. So I would probably, it's tough because I've just actually recalled about Bowers as well, and I do rate Caleb Williams, but I think I'm going to side with Jackson and Kraft.
Fair. Johnny in the league disagreed with you. He said Caleb and Brock for sure. Loves Lamar, but can see Caleb ascending new heights this season, and Bowers will be the centerpiece of a much improved offense. So, yeah, he went for Caleb and Brock.
I feel like I'm just going to get different answers to every one of them you present to me, so I'm prepared. It's fine.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So the second one from me: would you rather have Chase Brown and Chris Olave, or Saquon Barkley and AJ Brown?
Or Saquon and AJ. Oh, I would say Saquon and AJ. I just think talent-wise, both of them are superior than the others. Obviously, a little bit older and maybe not got as many years left in them, but I just think they are tier 1 caliber players, whilst the other two are probably tier 2, I would sort of suggest. So I'd go Saquon and AJ.
You did make Saquon your RB1 for the year.
Yeah. So if I didn't choose him.
Drew K17 agreed with you, Saquon and AJ. Marcos went the opposite way. He said, I think Brown and Olave, but only because I can't really predict what the Patriots offense is going to look like this year. Chase Brown has no challenges and is on a high-octane offense. Olave was great last year with both quarterbacks, and I think Tyson will complement him rather than compete with him. He said, I am also guilty of consuming too much Saints media, so feel free to disregard or call me a homer.
Fair enough. Nice. Right, my next one for you. Justin Jefferson and Carnell Tate, or St. Brown and Egbuka? Justin Jefferson and Carnell Tate, or Amon St. Brown and Egbuka?
God, these are difficult. I am going to go St. Brown and Egbuka. Obviously, I love Jefferson, top elite wide receiver, but I still want to see how that plays out with Kyler. I do expect him to obviously be a lot better than he was last season, Jefferson's output. But yeah, I'm just waiting to see that. And similar sort of reason with Tate, obviously highly regarded, highly touted to be a stud, but we haven't yet seen it. You know what you get with St. Brown. He's steady. He'll always score consistently, reliable presence in that Lions offense. And Egbuka, I know he tailed off in the second half of last season, but no Evans there anymore. Mayfield is reportedly, now contract talks aren't going as well as he would hope. So he's going to start slinging it, trying to get that money. And Egbuka will probably be his primary target. So I am going to go with St. Brown and Egbuka.
Nice. And Rob from the league agreed with you. He sort of said he said not much to choose between JJ and St. Brown. And he'd always take the player that he's seen produce versus unknown, unless the unknown was just a super high potential. So he thought St. Brown and Egbuka. Just a quick follow up on that. With Jefferson, do you feel he's just not in that top 3 conversation anymore in terms of sort of wide receivers in the league? You know, it was always sort of him, Chase, and then sort of Puka came out, and obviously JSN, and there was always a few, Cooper Kupp or whoever else was sort of around at the same time. But do you just not see Jefferson in that tier anymore?
Him as a player, I think he is. He absolutely is, just in terms of the athleticism and physicality and just his all-round game. I think he is absolutely still one of the best wide receivers in the league, but it's just who's throwing the ball to him. I just didn't like what I saw from McCarthy last year, and I do expect Murray to be better at getting him the ball. But again, it's just one of those where I need to see it before I can believe it. So yeah, I think he's kind of dropped out of that conversation, but there's every chance this year, if Murray's on it, I think you can put Jefferson back in that conversation by the end of the season. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Okay, so for my third surprise combo, would you rather have Travis Achan and Lad McConkey, or Javonte Williams and Carnell Tate?
So we're talking about the Saints Achan, yeah, you said?
Yep.
Yeah, and Lad McConkey. And then, sorry, who was the second?
Cowboys running back Javonte Williams and Carnell Tate.
Ooh, that is tricky, Sammy. That is tricky. I will go for oh, that is tough. I think I'm gonna go for Tate's side. I think Lad, again, I think we all really want to like Lad and obviously have high hopes for him and everything, and he is a good player, and I really like the Chargers. I think I've said that a few times. They're one of the teams I definitely always look out for and sort of tend to support if it's in a bit of a neutral game and such. And again, Travis Etienne is always sort of a solid running back without maybe the sort of real elite ability and such. I don't think he's much better. I just like him in that Cowboys setup where, again, they've got the gunslingers, they've got this, aerial game that just bombards them down the field, and then he's just that sort of secret sauce that just keeps on coming through, and I just like the opportunities to get. And Tate, again, whilst we haven't seen it, I like the opportunity. And I think if I was, if I was drafting and it was a choice of these, I think I'd want to bet on the sort of the potential high end upside, a little bit on the unknown, and sort of have that excitement of quite a highly regarded rookie. So I think I'd go that side.
All good points. I hear you. Unfortunately, no one agrees with you. Drew K17 picked Achan and Lad. Marcos said he swears he's not picking Saints on purpose, but he went Lad and Achan as well. He thinks the Chargers OC is going to work wonders with Lad and get him back to more of his prime that we saw before. Achan will have the run of the field with probably Alvin Kamara as a change of pace back. Javonte will get volume, and I actually like him on par with Achan. But Tate is a question mark for me because I haven't seen him in the NFL yet.
Yeah, completely reasonable, and I think that's sort of where. But I think if I was genuinely drafting rather than sort of, and especially in the dynasty, I think I would just lead on that excitement. But that was a hard one. I've gone for a few older boys in this next one for you. No, I haven't, because actually I was reading the wrong one, so that one's ahead. I will do this. Do this one first. So, Derrick Henry and James Cook, or Christian McCaffrey and Kyron Williams? So Derrick Henry and James Cook as your running backs, probably running backs 1 and 2, or Christian McCaffrey and Kyron Williams?
I'm beginning to regret this segment. This is quite hard. So I'll start with my reservations and try and narrow it down that way. Henry, I think we've spoken about in previous pods whether or not he's sort of going down the other side of the hill with his age and wear on the tires. Cook, I fully appreciate, is a top player, but I just don't really rate him as highly as others. So then, I would start siding with CMC and Williams, but then we have spoken about Williams and Blake Corum and that factor of whether he's going to lose out on snaps and potentially not be the clear RB1. But I think I'm going to have to say CMC and Williams. I think CMC still got plenty of gas left in the tank. Whether they start to manage his workload this season and take a little bit off him, I still think he's going to score heavily. And Kyron is Kyron. I think even though he's got that pressure of Corum, I think he'll still do a solid job for you. So I'm going to go with CMC and Kyron Williams.
Yeah, fair. Connor offered a few thoughts on this. He went for Henry and Cook, but the only reason was because he refuses to draft McCaffrey after drafting him a few seasons ago, and he was out injured the whole year. So that was quite a personal sort of reason and such. And again, when it comes to would you rather, and if you think about your draft, that's completely reasonable.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So for my next one, I have gone all running backs, and there's a name that you've just mentioned here as well, but would you rather have Cam Scatterboo and Derrick Henry, or Quinshon Judkins and David Montgomery?
Almost immediately, I was going to say Judkins and Montgomery. Judkins, I'm really high on him. I think he could. Again, we've sort of been talking about Hampton and other players. I think Judkins could be, a bit of a sneaky dog to really sort of force himself up there in the sort of the elite sort of running back sort of era. I don't know why. It's just like I like watching him play. He's a bit of a bulldozer. He wasn't too farly. I think Genty and Hampton were the 1-2, but then it was sort of Henderson and Judkins. But it was obviously such a deep running back class. He wasn't too widely or wide off them as a prospect and such. Missed quite a few games last year. But Judkins, I immediately went for. But then, as I said, Montgomery, I've got some reservations, even though I completely understand what you say about Henry. But in terms of this year coming, again, I still see him being one of the top dogs, really. Scatterboo, the injury gives me a few concerns, but he's so fun to watch and such. You'd want him on your team. But I think I'll shade it to Judkins and Montgomery. Probably, again, I saw a bit of news this week where the Texans OC was sort of talking how, it sounds like Montgomery really could be sort of a 3-down back. So I think, actually, whilst I've got a few reservations, he might have a bigger year than I'm expecting. And as I sort of say, I really do rate Judkins. So tight one, but I'd go Judkins and Montgomery.
So I would agree with you. Judkins was a player that I wanted to draft, and I think he has definitely got a big year ahead of him. The good news for me and Giants fans, Scatterboo was seen doing drills yesterday. He looks to be in decent shape by the looks of it, but obviously very early in the summer, so a lot of way to go to see him back at his best. But unfortunately, Drew K17 sided with Scatterboo and Henry, so he disagreed with you, and Marcos agreed with him as well. He said Scat and Henry, both teams will be much higher scoring than the Browns or Texans.
Fair. Yeah, that's a really good point, though. Didn't really consider. So shows Marcos is a lot cleverer than me, but we'll see. We'll see. Right, number 4 for you. So again, there is a player that's been mentioned here, but it's not a problem. So I've got Ashton Genty and Lad McConkey, or Bijan Robinson and Brian Thomas. I think is he Brian Thomas Senior now? I want to say Junior, but I feel like he might have changed his name to Senior since becoming a dad. So,
Okay.
yeah, but I just said Brian Thomas, yeah, wide receiver of the Jags. So, Genty and McConkey, or Robinson and Brian Thomas.
So, I don't know if I'm in the minority on this one, but Brian Thomas Jr. or Senior was a little bit underwhelming last season. I can't quite remember.
He was awful. He had a hell of a bad year. Yeah, really good rookie year. And last year, again, he was getting drafted second rounds, third rounds, at the latest, and had an absolute dud.
Oh dear. Okay, so yeah, that makes me feel a bit better than that. I got that right. Bijan is a freak, so it's hard to sort of discount him. I think he'll be top dog in terms of running backs. But I just think off the back of that underwhelming, disappointing season, I've kind of agreed and mentioned McConkey sort of having a bounce back year as well. So I agree with, I think it was Marcos made that point earlier. Genty, you've said, just the improvements the Raiders are going to make and moving forward. I think we'll see the best of him come out. So I'm going to lean and go towards Genty and Lad on this one.
Lewis really disagrees. He says Bijan side. He doesn't mind Lad, but doesn't just have him ranked too differently to Brian Thomas, even off the back of a bad year, whereas Bijan's just in a league of his own at running back. So he went for the Bijan side.
Fair. Right. And then for my final one, would you rather have Jameson Williams and Kyle Pitts, or Scary Terry McLaurin and Sam Laporta?
I would rather have Scary Terry. I think, actually, thinking about that.
You love Scary Terry.
Yeah, I do like Scary Terry. He had one bad year and he's done so well by me for so many years. I love that he's called Scary Terry. It's fun. I believe in Daniels and him as a pairing. And I just think Laporta, again, whilst he's tailed off a little bit from such an exciting start to his career and things, I do think he's a better player than Pitts. Is Pitts going to get more targets? Yeah, maybe. Jameson Williams does seem to be an ascending player finally, doesn't he? He's always shown that sort of highlight reel capability and such. Seems a bit of a madman, but there does seem as though there's a bit more trust going on with him. But I've got to go with my boy, Scary Terry and Laporta.
Drew K17 went with Williams and Pitts, but Marcos disagreed and agreed with you and said Terry and Sam for him. Although JMO and Sam constantly vulture each other, and he thinks Blau's pedigree leans to more tight end usage, I'm buying a lot of Scary Terry this year for a bounce back. Nice. The interesting point on Laporta I saw this week was I didn't realise how serious or how bad his back injury was. So really? He missed obviously a big chunk of last season, but they were saying that he's only just started jogging in camp.
Oh.
So considering I drafted him, that wasn't the news I was hoping to hear this week.
I should have stuck to that original July date of your draft, shouldn't you?
That's exactly why I wanted to.
Would have had this information. Well, yeah, that could make a massive difference. Right, and the final one from me, which again I wrote down. I thought it was quite an easy selection, but then thinking about it from a fantasy perspective, I do think it makes it a little bit trickier. So, Joe Burrows and Chase, or Drake May and AJ Brown, which quarterback, wide receiver, 1-2 punch would you go for?
So I will start by saying that I think AJ Brown is going to be a very, very dangerous weapon for Drake May, and I think they will hit it off, and they'll both put up big points moving forwards. But having praised them earlier in the pod and given Chase his props and Burrow, I still say comes with a caveat, as always, in terms of health dependent. If they can both stay healthy, Burrow's obviously struggled more so. But if we're talking that everyone's healthy, I am taking Burrow and Chase.
Yeah, fair. I think that's I said when I wrote down, I was like, oh, so obviously then. But then, like I said, you are drafting, and especially if it was Dynasty, those injuries do come in mind. And I was like, Drake May probably is quite far ahead of Burrows in terms of prospect from that perspective. But Ollie agreed with you. He sort of said on the field, it'd easy to take Bengals too, but notes fantasy is harder. He's been screwed over by the injuries at key parts of the competition. So that would obviously make him nervous, but he'd still take Burrows and Chase. He does highlight that he feels people have a tendency to overhype players moving to favourable teams, and would actually see AJ as quite a good trade candidate at the moment, which I think was a really good perspective, really, because I said it's quite easy to kind of get caught up with the excitement of what it could be and what it should be, and the potential and everything. But again, quite often, how often does it happen that it's not smooth sailing or it doesn't quite work out and things like that? So maybe AJ's stock is as high as it's going to be now. So he agreed with you, and I probably do too.
Oh, that's a nice way to end it. I'm feeling
happy.
Marcos actually gave us one to discuss himself. Put one forward. So thank you for that, Marcos. He asked, would you rather have Tua and Drake London or Bryce Young and Tet McMillan?
Oh, that's nice. And that kind of goes quite, with the one we were talking earlier about McMillan and London, wasn't it? In terms of them being similar. I think, as I said, I don't think he's going to be a candidate, like I think I said last week, Tua, in terms of having this sort of Mayfield or Darnold sort of renaissance in his career. Just because of the injuries and the limitations that we've already seen from him, I do think are a lot more than we ever saw from those guys in terms of, there's some big flaws, but he can sling it and he can link up with wide receiver. Again, he has got that in his locker. And as I said, I definitely at the minute I'd have London as the best player out of all four of them. But I think I would go for Young and McMillan. I think they've started building on something off the back of last year. I think the team's a little bit more ascending. I think they should be stronger this season, just because of a few extra weapons and things they've added around them. So, yeah, it's a tough one, but I think I would go Young and McMillan.
Yep, I'm in agreement with you. I do see Tua winning that quarterback battle with Penix Jr.
Definitely. I do see that.
I think he can give them a sort of a short-term burst. I think the first few weeks of the season might be fun, and he will put up points and Drake London will benefit from that. But I just see him tailing off a little bit as the season continues. And like you said, I think there are, in some quarters, there are still some question marks over Bryce Young, but off the back of last season, the foundation of that, you'd like to, well, particularly me, because Tet's my guy and was also in my team, but I think you can see that sort of gradual incremental improvement from those two together, hopefully as well this season. So yeah, I would side with Young and McMillan as well. Thanks to everyone else who also contributed and gave their thoughts as well. I can now put the pen and paper away and stop sweating. So I'm delighted to say we're now joined by one of our TSL members on the podcast to get to know them a little bit better and their NFL fantasy football story and delve deeper into the league that they're competing in with our network. Marcos joins us and he's from our Midlands League. Marcos, how's it going, mate? You all good?
All good here. Cheers. Thank you very much, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you on, mate. Glad to have you on. So as my competition, I think I'm going to leave it to Jack to run through the Midlands draft with you while I make notes on the mental warfare that we've got ahead of us this season. But I think we can speak for both of us that we've loved having you as part of our network so far. You've been active in the chat when it comes to fantasy football stuff, but you've been a big help for us with our segments on the pod as well, giving your opinion and insight. As with all of our guests, though, that we hope to have on, I was keen to kind of start firstly by finding out a bit more about you in terms of what got you into the NFL and how did that then lead into an interest in fantasy football?
Yes. So I was about 15 at the time when I really started paying attention to like the NFL and football in general in terms of like the college level and stuff like that. Funny enough, it was just after Hurricane Katrina when we had all that mess, the flooding and everything like that, and people sort of in the area sort of looked around each other and said like what makes Louisiana Louisiana, what makes New Orleans New Orleans, and everyone sort of rallied behind the Saints at the time because when the Superdome got destroyed, well, not destroyed, it's still standing, but when it got all the leaks in the roof and all the flooding, there was rumors of them going to like San Antonio, like moving completely across the state borders, and the community sort of rallied around the Saints to say, let's keep our Saints. They do so much. They donated several $1 million, I think, to the reconstruction of the New Orleans Saints and the surrounding areas for the training camps and stuff like that. So I think that people saw that, and I saw that, and I thought, I have so many hobbies in life. Why can't I just pay attention to them a little bit, get a little bit involved with what they do, and watch the seasons? And it started off with 2005, which I think we won 3 games, and then 2006 was kind of the homecoming, the dome coming, if you want to call it that, with the block punt with Steve Gleason at the Falcons, and I've just had the bug ever since. So I can't get rid of the damn thing.
It's quite a different story to mine. Just randomly finding myself at MetLife on a trip to New York a few years ago.
Well, if it's on your doorstep, I'm sure you feel differently.
Yeah, true. And so, how did that then transition to the fantasy side of things? When did you start first getting into that? And how did that develop?
That was probably a good 15 years afterwards. I think I really started playing NFL fantasy like 2022, I want to say. It was a bit of a chat with some guys at work I know who are NFL fans anyways, and they just popped the idea out there to get everybody at work into a silly little league and get some silly little players on our teams and see who would win. And we started off with just, a bare bones redraft, and then the next year we added a dynasty. The next year we added a chopped league, and ever since then we've just sort of been stockpiling fantasy. And then I took part in you've had Matt on obviously for the JTT Cup. I took part in that in 2024, and with little to no fantasy experience, I actually won the damn thing. So
really?
Yeah, it's completely by luck. I have no analytical background. I still don't, but I listen to a lot more these days than I did back then. And I think you're not supposed to say this part out loud, but winning it certainly makes you want to pay a lot more attention to it than struggling at the back, kicking your feet. And since then, I've just been diving into more and more charity best balls across the UK and the USA. But definitely the local work colleagues brought it about, and then I've just started dipping my toes and stuff ever since.
Brilliant. I've got no experience of winning any fantasy league.
Yes, not yet.
True, not yet. Good point. And we've been speaking a little bit, haven't we, about the Midlands meetup just when the season gets started. So some fellow NFL fans in this part of the world, and a place or two where everyone gets together, you were saying?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's several places. I mean, I think Digbeth and Birmingham Towns is probably the best location in terms of if everyone's in the Midlands to get to. I mean, shout at me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure we'll put it out to the community at large when that happens. But there's loads of little dive bars and honky tonks and stuff like that where people show the NFL constantly. We did our works draft at Low Places, which is in Digbeth, and they're fantastic. They've got memorabilia all around, TVs, and best of all, I think the beer is quite cheap as well. Cheap for town, anyways.
Sounds good. Definitely, I'll be checking that out with you when the season starts. Jack, I think you had some questions for Marcus as well, I believe.
Yeah, that's wicked. I suppose firstly from my side, so would you say now is NFL is that your main sport, the main thing that you sort of follow, or were you always sort of into sports and then sort of moved into that one? Obviously, when you sort of saw the stuff about Saint,
I would say I was anti-sport. I was.
Oh, really?
This was like, oh God, this was 2005 at the time, and as a young man in Louisiana, I was pretty much in the emo goth rock scene, so I had absolutely nothing to do with sports whatsoever. And I think most people when they're young, they go to a clique, some sort of, you go sports, you go rock, you do whatever it is. And I mean, it's 2005 back in the day, so you had to pick one of them. But ever since then, I've been getting more and more into sports. Certainly coming over here to England, I've been getting more into football, and not calling it soccer for fear of my life being threatened. But yeah, I've definitely been branching out more. But I would still definitely say NFL is my main. College football, LSU. It's pretty much hand in hand for me. But I'd say those are my mains at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And if that young indie rocker could see himself winning best ball 20 years on,
put it on my gravestone. Yeah.
Could never have envisioned it. So, oh no, that's great. And so with fantasy, so again, I think your path obviously sounds quite a similar one to maybe my own, because Samit got me into it. I don't know, again, sort of similar, like 5-6 years ago. Very basic sort of redraft that we started with, and then you just. Again, the community, I don't know how you found it in particular, whether or not you stick to the UK community or if you're still playing with people in the US and things like that. But I just found the more I looked into it, the more I found people playing different versions, and it sort of snowballs from there in terms of you're kind of looking for the most complex version you can find almost for the challenge. I don't know, is sort of, have you stayed kind of primarily within sort of your local and your workmates playing, or now are you just playing everything you can find that looks interesting?
I think every dynasty or chop league I'm in, it's all UK based. I think mostly the US ones I dabble in are more your best balls, your one and dones per years. I feel like it's just easier to stick with the UK crowd when you're in the UK. I mean, because you're able to relate to them so much more. I know we talked about the meetups, and I don't go to a lot of meetups, but we do like works meetups. We've done meetups for different leagues before, so I do find more predominantly in the UK based leagues, just because drafting time zones is a nightmare, and you'll find that if you do best balls in the USA, that you have to sort of set a queue before you go to bed and wake up in a pool of sweat to check your queue. Did it get wiped out? Are you still on the clock? But yeah, it's just so much easier if you're UK based. You stay in the UK.
Yeah, that logistics. No, it's wicked. No, as I said, we've really enjoyed sort of. As I said, we've kind of always been pretty much in friends ones. I moved into one that was with some lads from the Southwest that invited me in last year, and I just really enjoyed that, kind of getting to know people. And again, you kind of get to talk NFL with, as I said, Samit's pretty much been my sounding board for the last 5-6 years. And it's nice now to, as I said, we've really enjoyed kind of growing that, even this early part of the competition so far. So, as I said, as Samit said, it's been great to have you on board. But looking ahead, obviously your expertise showed up. I think I picked you as one of the favourites for the Midlands off the back of the draft. And when that happened, obviously a couple of weeks ago, have you, when you get drafted, have you got certain strategies in place? Is it just sort of play the board as it comes to you, or sort of, generally, what sort of your take and as I say, sort of strategy when it comes to drafting?
In general, I just sort of keep in mind, the star players at each position, and then sort of roll with the punches as it comes to what draft order you get assigned. I'm very much, on the fly. I'll look at how the board's dropped. I don't really have a big board or anything printed out in A0 or anything like that. I know who my guys are that I like, and I try and get them at cost or slightly above cost if I can get them. If it means taking them 3 or 4 picks above ADP, I'll go for that. If it means trading up for it, I'll do it. But it's very much a juke and jab sort of thing, rather than this is exactly how it's going to play out. And if someone takes a pick in front of me, I'm screwed. I'm all, balls to the wall. Like, what was it? That Always and Sunny Philadelphia gift, that wild card, you just go completely, whatever you feel like and you got to go for it.
Yeah, no, which is a great way to be. And when you say that, sort of the players that you like, again, I don't know if you've heard, but me and Samit talk quite a lot about the fact that we tend to draft players that we just like watching, or we've got some sort of affiliation to, maybe, rather than how good they are at fantasy all the time, of course, in the right sort of ranges and such. Are you similar, or are you sort of quite cold and look at the, kind of just think, no, I want, the player because he does, or he's historically got this?
I definitely, I can't talk. I drafted Deshaun Watson in the Midlands League, so I can't say that. I can't.
There's a lot.
I was going to say something else. No, I feel like I can be quite, like ambivalent about, this is the player, a team is paying them to play. They've added X amount of weapons, or they've got a better OC or something like that. I can't stand the Falcons, but I will draft Bijan if I get the 101. I'm not so dense to think that Bijan is not a good running back. I think he's obviously top 1, top 2, depending on if you put Gibbs above or below him. I'm quite, I'm not, do or die. Like, I don't think I drafted. I'm just going through the draft board now. I don't think I drafted a Saints, did I? No, I didn't draft a Saints. So I'm going to say, I'm quite, ambivalent. Even though I think the Saints will do good this year, I'm not going to hang my hat on, the quarterback, the running back, and the wide receiver. So yeah, I'd say I'm quite flexible.
So I'm just checking. Did Watson go sooner than your Saints quarterback Shuck, or was he off the board?
I'll hang this up if he did. I don't think he did. Hold on. No, he went 4-10 to Jay Bento. He traded up for him.
Oh, okay.
I got Watson at the third pick of the 10th round.
Okay, yeah, fine. I was going to say just because that would have been, quite questionable. But
yeah, I think the only quarterbacks after him were Ty Simpson, Penix, and a few of the other.
Fair enough. So, and with your draft, are you, as I said, I thought it looked really strong when I was kind of looking through the Midlands League and such. But did you ultimately come out overall pretty happy?
Yeah, I quite like it. I really don't think I'm in with a chance this year, but I do quite like the spread and the depth I have. I don't want to give away my whole strategy and secrets, but I feel like I am a bit over leveraged at wide receiver, but I do have a range of age in wide receiver, so I'm not too fussed about that. Yeah. My biggest glaring weakness, I think everyone can see it, is tight end, and it's just sort of banking on Sadiq, the freak, being what he's purported to be in the Jets offense, and hopefully he is that. Otherwise, I've just got Justin Jolie or Gunnar Helm, or Greg Dulcich, any of those rock solid cornerstones at tight end that I can flip a coin on and see if they get 5 points or 0 points.
But that week when they win you a game, you'll be loving it. Yeah. No, as I said, Sadiq's hopefully got a relatively high ceiling and such. It's just what the floor is, isn't it? I think when people like that come in and see what he's about. But no, it's just sort of say I thought it looked strong. One person you did draft who I also drafted was Tootin for the Jags over at running back. I think you picked him at 8.3. I think I got him sort of end of the 7th round. What's your gut or sort of what's your sort of take on him? Is he someone you think should be a fairly valuable player or sort of similar to me, you're a little bit unsure?
I think, anytime you can get a young running back in the Liam Cohen offense, you sort of do a backflip, don't you? Yeah. I know he's got incumbents with Chris Rodriguez, and he's, had issues with fumbling in his college tape, but, he had a few chances at the Rock last year, and he flashed, even though you had HN running it predominantly for the Jags. I think obviously he hasn't had a chance to be RB1 yet, but he's got all the talent. Training camp reports are that he's explosive. I mean, barring an injury, touch wood, knock on wood now, I can't see why he can't have, a solid, B+, potentially go into an A- sort of turnout for you. But I mean, it's all to be said for how he lines up in the depth chart and how, the Jags want to run.
How it all shakes out. No, well, that makes me feel a bit better. Yeah, I think the more I've sort of looked into it and sort of seen the production that Cohen's got out of sort of running backs, it's made me feel a bit better. As you said, he definitely flashed a little bit with a couple of games last year and such. I think it's I don't know. I don't know what it is. There's just something. I think you've got Genty and Barkley. I've only, I don't have he's kind of my RB2, which is probably where I'm a little bit. Again, I think if he's more RB3 sort of flex level, I think, you're absolutely content with it and such. But as I say, I think because he's my RB2, that's where I'm a little bit nervous. But I'm stronger in other areas, and that's just sometimes how the draft shakes out, isn't it? So
I don't think you'll get an RB1 like him at the value you can get with such, one-dimensional competition, with such a great coach and OC and the offensive line that you've got. So if he's your RB2, I think you'll be happy by the end of the season. But I don't have a crystal ball or anything like that. just feeling like
we'll get you back on when I'm bottom of the league. No, that's good. And you mentioned you maybe don't feel this year's going to be your year. So again, we did sort of a little bit of not a full power rankings of the leagues and such, but highlighted a few teams. But were there any other teams sort of in the league that did stand out to you, or any sort of players? Again, anything?
Yeah. I've got 3. If I can do like a little cheeky top 3.
I'm listening, by the way.
Ed, you did say who can win this year, not in future years. So I'm not going to talk about you. You've got a great future. You've got a fantastic future. But Yeah, my number 3 will be Ali Rudge. I mean, they've got Herbert and Mahomes as their quarterbacks. They've got Bucky, Jacobs, and Pollard as their running backs, and they've got the best wide receiver room in the league. I think they've got JSN, Pickens, Odunze, Denzel Boston, and DK Metcalf.
Yeah.
The only glaring weakness is what I have, which is tight end. But I mean, they've got Eli Stowers as their presumed tight end 2, Jake Ferguson as the tight end 1. That's not a bad place to be.
Yeah.
And you've got a bit of a future there too. You don't really have a lot of, I'm not going to say senior, but vets, like veterans in there that are facing a cliff.
Yeah.
Number 2, Brandon up UTV up the Villa. Quarterbacks, CJ Stroud, Drake May. You can't complain about Drake May, especially after the year he's had. Brees Hall and HN, good solid, B plus 1-2 punch there. Wide receivers are great. Elon Ra, Rasheed Rice, Brian Thomas, who I'm still, hopeful he's got to bounce back in him, especially on that Jags offense. And, Devontae Adams ain't going to lose any touches or any fantasy value this year, I don't think. And he's got Loveland as well. So he's got a big cornerstone at tight end. And I'm going to butcher his name. Drew K17. I think that's how. I haven't asked him how to pronounce it, but that's how. I mean, he's got Jaden Daniels and Matt Stafford, Chase Brown and DeAndre Swift, and Justin Jefferson, Zay Flowers as his wide receivers, and he's got Tyler Ward and Dalton Kincaid as tight end. I think he's just not got holes. It's not like a juggernaut in one position. He's just not got holes if you look at it. So I think winning a fantasy league in a year is not about, overwhelming in one position. I think it's just surviving and chipping and getting a win, eking out wins. And I think he can do that quite easy.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think looking at that team, kind of even look at depth, like the floor is really high, isn't it? There's not really a player there where you're like, they're going to lay too many duds, really, just having a quick look at that. So, eyes on, which would be good. As I said, it looks like it'll be a really good sort of competition there, which is great. And finally, just from me, I suppose, just in terms of sort of the league and sort of your sort of strategy, without giving too much away, I think the Midlands, similar to the South, and maybe a couple of the leagues are really active, lots of trades going on, lots of people being put on the block and everything like that. I think Midlands is slightly one of the slower moving ones and such. Is generally, do you like to be active, or do you kind of sit on your assets till you need somebody desperately, or sort of what's sort of your rough sort of strategy generally?
I'm very active. I know there's not been any trades, but I've certainly been in a few closed door conversations with people, Sumit included. We keep going back and forth on prices and forecasting potential futures and outputs for people. I think it's one of those things where until the seal is broken, nobody's going to trade. Everyone's going to hold their cards close to their chest, and it's just going to take that one to push it over. And I think afterwards you'll see a bit of an onslaught. But no, I'm quite liberal with all my my players and my capital, and quite flexible to see it go and see it come and swap it around. If I think it's worth going for, I'm definitely going to go for it.
Yeah, wicked. No, I think that's completely right. I think probably the most active league. I think like Puka or someone got traded, and it almost set the benchmark of okay, that's the sort of value that might be getting in this league, and it kind of allows everyone else to then kind of feel a little bit more freedom in terms of sort of making offers and things like that. So it'd be interesting to see. Yeah, I mean, if you get it's getting blood out of a stone with some meat. So if you get a trade with him done, I'll commend you. But
well, the thing is, he keeps throwing Giants players at me, like pulling at my heartstrings. And I did touch on it earlier. I did say he's a king of mind games because he checked a couple of Eagles players at me just before the podcast.
You put Jeremiah Love on the block, of course, and make an offer.
That's true.
No, well, Marcus, for me, I obviously wish you all the best with it. I look forward to following it. It's obviously been great to have you on from my side, and I'm sure we'll have you on plenty of times over the course of the season.
Lovely chaps. It's great to be on. Great to chat to you guys finally.
Brilliant, Marcus. Thank you very much for coming on. Just wanted to say as well, do you want to give your social a plug, or is there anything you want to give a shout out while you're on?
No, I don't. I don't have any sort of online presence or anything like that, mate. Just honestly, the only thing I'd try and push is that the JTT Cup, which is the cornerstone of me getting into fantasy and really putting it on my chest and interacting with the media and listening to podcasts and really diving deep into it. So that's the only, promotion or anything that I'd want to put out there and say, besides the Sunday League, which I'm already on, it's pointless. The JTT Cup is the one that's, that's been just a great effort and, a great charity to get behind as well.
Well said. We definitely echo those sentiments. But yeah, again, appreciate you coming on. As we said earlier, we're thrilled to have you involved with the Sunday League, and I'm pretty sure you are the most mentioned member on the pod. So yeah, good stuff. Thanks for coming on, and we'll definitely catch up with you again during the season, mate.
Yeah, lovely. Cheers, fellas. Thank you very much.
On to the news recap then. As I mentioned at the top of the episode, it's been a bit of a quieter week this time round after the fun and games we went through last week after June 1 hit. However, there was still lots to discuss. It starts with the Atlanta Falcons and Drake London agreeing a new 4-year, $141 million extension, which makes London the third highest paid receiver in the league, sitting behind JSN and Jamar Chase. We have spoken about him already in the pod, but just that situation that he's got in Atlanta, where he's the clear top boy. He's been a solid fantasy scorer since entering the league, had a big year in 2024. Looks set to follow that up last season, but was limited to 12 games. He's still only 24, and the Falcons have locked in a major part of their offense for years to come. So big move for them, Joe.
Massive. He really is sort of the centerpiece, isn't he? And sort of the face of the franchise, as it were. And obviously, as new contracts come, they're always going to be moved right up the list and things. So I think it's completely reasonable where he is. And yeah, his floor's really high. His ceiling's really high. I love watching him play. I didn't actually realize he was still quite that young. I thought he had a year or two on that. So I'll probably change all my previous answers to Drake London, to be honest with you, because I can't imagine Tet's that much younger than him. But yeah, I think it's completely reasonable. And as I said, for the Falcons, they had to do it. Him and Robinson are, the star boys, and they need to be treated that way.
Elsewhere, Micah Parsons revealed that he's not going to be back until mid-October. That's an IDP option, missing a chunk of the early part of the season. And then we'll have to wait and see how impactful he can be and how long that takes once he's back in the team. I will get your thoughts on just Parsons in general and the Packers defense, but this one got me a little bit more worried, to be honest, because he did his ACL 3 months after Neighbours suffered his. So obviously it's not that simple that you can just compare 2 injuries, 2 rehabs and think that, they're all going to be on a similar timeline and such. But it possibly does shed a bit of light on why there's so much concern around Neighbours, that Parsons has got his timeline sorted in a sense, whereas there's still that uncertainty around Neighbours, even though he suffered his months beforehand.
All about Neighbours, isn't it? No, completely. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a sort of saying, and I think I've shared those concerns quite a lot recently, as I said, in terms of sort of the lack of clarity around it. But was it Micah who broke this news himself, did you say, in terms of this, or was it sort of just general news story? Because again, Micah, he doesn't have talk, does he? He sort of shows stuff, but he's just too valuable to rush back. They want to make sure he's 100% before he's on the field. He clearly lifts their potential massively, but I'm not really buying Packers as a contender unless he's on the team. But it's it's just one of those. It does impact the offensive weapons. Again, if you select them, it probably isn't going to have too much. It might not change exactly where you draft people and things, but it's, again, if they're a worse team and they're not getting turnovers and defenses on the field all the game and all the rest of it, it's obviously going to have a big difference maker for them. So he's a hell of a player. Again, he looked as though he was sort of next in line after Myles Garrett to really carry the frame for years to come. And I just really hope that this isn't the start of sort of an injury run, really, and we do get to see him play in primarily all the games.
Staying with the Packers, another wide receiver who got paid this past week was Christian Watson. He agreed on a 4-year, $110.5 million contract extension. I don't get this one, if I'm honest. I know people are tipping him for a breakout season this year, but he hasn't played a full season in 4 years in the league. His numbers are pretty modest because of that from a fantasy perspective. The Packers have paid Jaden Reed as well this offseason. How are you feeling about Watson and Green Bay's decisions? Do you share my concerns, or do you think it's worth it and he is primed for a big year?
you've got to have someone in there, like, and you need someone sort of committed for a period. You know what I mean? Again, it's sort of, they've gone from, again, I think we spoke about, like, they have this sort of, they almost had like 3 or 4 wide receiver threes, or sort of certainly wide receiver 2 level players for a number of years, and for whatever reason, that just seems to be the way they're going. But Watson has always been spoken about as the main guy there. Yeah, I probably do lean towards you. Again, I think he's good. I don't think he's overly exceptional. I don't think his ceiling is that high. I probably wouldn't want him anything other than a flex in terms of my fantasy team sort of level and such. But as I say, I guess they need some continuity in that sort of area of the field. So yeah, I guess they had to sort of do it and such. But yeah, he's, again, he'll probably have a good start to the year. He'll probably show up, but as you sort of say, you know, history tends to sort of repeat itself with them.
In a bizarre one, the Chicago Bears are reportedly continuing to move towards leaving Soldier Field in Illinois and crossing over to Indiana to build their new stadium. I keep thinking I'm going to hear that this is a joke and that the Bears are actually, they found a more suitable site to stay in Illinois. But whenever this news story seems to come up, it's more about this move to Indiana. And I did look into it, and apparently Hammond, Indiana is only 23 miles away from Soldier Field and about a 40-minute ride. So it's not like they're moving a million miles away, but I don't know. That's like telling me that Villa are leaving Villa Park and the new stadium's going to be in Coventry. So I just don't get what those involved in this process are sort of pushing them to not stay in Illinois rather than going through with this. Have you got any thoughts on this one?
Well, it's money, isn't it, mate? Money. It's money talks. You know, that's ultimately the whole reason. You know, again, sort of thinking about Premier League, like West Ham, leaving West Ham to go to Stratford and to the Olympic Stadium. You know, yeah, their performance and stuff, but you speak to most of their fans, and that's what hurts them the most, that they left their sort of their home and they've gone to this sort of soulless, you know, new modern stadium, which can obviously seat more people can buy more drinks, and you know, it's a bigger money spend, and that's, again, the thing, you know, again, with the World Cup coming up at the moment, some of these NFL stadiums, you know, Atlanta, I think they've actually got reasonably priced concession and such, but like the SoFi Stadium and obviously thinking of my own, like the Tottenham Stadium, like, they're unbelievable buildings, you know, they're incredible, but there is just an essence of what sport clubs should be that are lost in them, because they're so nice and they're so built for entertainment and experience, rather than just being a hub where you can get with your mates, kind of be huddled up. It's, you know, it's more about the, you know, kind of camaraderie of being with a group of people all cheering on the same thing, rather than this. Yeah, I don't know. It's nice to see, and it just seems it's another one of those. It's similar to you, again, when I saw Indiana, I was like, well, aren't the Colts in Indiana? My geography of the US is absolutely useless. And then you look into it, remember how big the US is, and see that actually it's not too far. I did see a few reports that there are some frustrations with Soldier Fields. I don't know if it's about sort of getting to the stadium or sort of the walk to and from or something like that. But it'll be a shame. Again, you know, it'd be great to kind of get maybe a Bears fan on to the pod at some point, to kind of, who's probably got a lot more insight and intel, and or certainly a lot more views of what the fans are feeling on that side of things, because it's difficult for me to say. But yeah, mate, it just again shows how much money is in this world of sport these days, and yeah, again, it's anything to be expected. I mean, the NFL have had some, you know, again, we don't really get it in England too much, but the NFL have had some major moves, haven't they, where teams really have completely relocated and things. So yeah, I guess it's not a complete shock over there.
I know you touched on it there slightly as well, but do you think it impacts them on the field? Because everything seems to be going in such a positive trajectory at the moment. Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, and just how they're improving and becoming a real force in that division. I agree with you. It's probably best to get an opinion of Bears fans and what they think. But there was an article that said a lot of fans are just keen to get it over and done with, whether it's in Illinois or moving. But do you think it risks sort of disrupting the path that they're on the field as well?
No, I'd probably say not. Again, the grand schemes of things, if you're talking 25 miles or whatever you said it was, it really isn't that far, is it? And such. And again, it probably builds them up to have sort of a mega last season at Soldier Field and then maybe a mega first season in the new one. Do you know what I mean? It kind of gives you that little bit of motivation, if anything. So, no, I don't think it would be too impactful.
One player who we mentioned earlier doesn't seem to be getting anywhere close to signing a new contract anytime soon is Baker Mayfield. Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback said this past week that they are not anywhere close to agreeing a new deal. And although the desire is there to get something done still, there is a distance between them on agreement. He's still only 31. You've got Jake Browning as your QB2 as things stand. It's not ideal if you're a Baker Mayfield owner in Dynasty, as you kind of wait and see how this plays out. But do you kind of see these two parties getting together and thrashing something out, and he's playing for the Bucs beyond this season?
I really like it as a pairing. I think, again, it's obviously gone really well. Since he's been there, he seems pretty well loved. And I think they're the team that have really sort of brought his talents and ability to the forefront. So it'd be a shame for it not to. It does sound as though that is what he wants, doesn't it? And kind of, I think he wants it. I think, 50 mil is sort of being touted as sort of the fair sort of market value for him. I think he's more at sort of 33 or so at the moment. And yeah, I just wonder if he did hit the open market, who could target him? Again, I was sort of thinking Vikings or Falcons, maybe a return to Panthers. I can't remember if he had a good time there, but sort of middle of the pack teams that are, feel a quarterback shy, that aren't going to be drafting low enough to maybe go and get one of the top dogs and things. So it's always interesting to see what the market could be. I think there'd be plenty of suitors for him, but yeah, I like him at the Bucs. I think it's, again, they've become a team that you want to watch, and they're plenty on red zone, and they're exciting to follow. So I think it'd be a shame if it didn't.
I think Baker Mayfield with a chip on his shoulder is going to be fun to watch if he's got some sort of point to prove if they don't get an agreement done before the season starts. So that'll be fun to see him out there. And then finally, the freak of nature that is George Kittle is targeting a return to action in week 1 against the Rams. He's only 19 weeks removed from suffering an Achilles heel injury, but apparently he's ahead of schedule, which is not music to my ears, as I'm a Jake Tonjes owner. So that kind of limits his already limited role in the team. But for the personality that Kittle is and just how good he is for the 49ers as part of that offense, I think we as neutrals just want to see the best players out on the field as much as possible, right? So this is good to hear.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, let's go. Let's get him on there. Another one that you just want to see on the field as much as you can, especially because he hasn't got too many years in the career left, and he's just such a superstar. And I drafted him, so yeah, come on, Kittle. Let's get on the field, boy.
Good stuff. I think you had one other piece that you wanted to talk about as well.
Well, yeah, just a little interview that I saw going on, a little bit of a sort of scrummage with some players, was Jordan Mailata at the Eagles talking about their rookie defensive tackle, that UR Bernard, I think that got. He's Nigerian. I don't think he's ever played football before. But I remember when he was drafted, I think it was in our WhatsApp group where, they always like comp a player to the person getting drafted, and his comp, even though he was getting drafted at like, I don't know, 490 or whatever it was, his comp was Myles Garrett. And I was like, what? Like, how could that be his comp? And then you just look at the size of the bloke. Like, he is one of those guys like Myles Garrett where you are like, he is not human. Like, he is just built completely different to 99% of people on this planet. And yeah, Mailata was just sort of saying, this guy is just a complete freak of nature. He was sort of talking about one of the gym exercises, weightlifting exercise they were doing, and they were like, the numbers he was putting up was just ridiculous. So he was just sort of saying freakishly strong, freakishly fast. And once he puts it all together, he was like, it's a wrap. And obviously learning the art of playing NFL and playing American football is going to be quite a big way for him if he really doesn't have this experience like they're saying. But I just really like him to get on the field. Again, it just sounds really exciting, even if it's in the sort of, the preseason games and things, just to kind of get an eye on him and just see how terrifying he is. Because, I think when another player is saying that, I think it shows, because again, all these guys are just ridiculous athletes and stuff, aren't they? But you could just see the way he was saying it. It was like, nah, this guy is something different. So look forward to following, seeing how his progress comes.
I've actually just seen an image of him from training camp.
Is it like looking in the mirror?
Oh yeah. What's the fuss about? What's wrong with you guys? Yeah, I can see where my light is coming from. Fair. Be interesting to track his career, definitely. Any other bits, Jack?
No. I think that was, as you sort of saying, the majority of it this week. Kind of a little bit more of a sort of slower week.
Good stuff. So that is a wrap on this episode of the Sunday League podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and please give this episode a like or leave a positive review if you've enjoyed it. Please subscribe and tell a friend to tell a friend, as we want to give our numbers a big push before the season gets underway. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcasts. And you can follow us across all social media at Sunday League NFL. If you're a first-time listener, or perhaps you're still thinking about joining a league next year and you want to get involved in our community of NFL fantasy football fans based in the UK, and you want to join one of our future leagues, please email us at sundayleaguenfl@gmail.com. Big thank you to those who have already subscribed across the different platforms and have been tuning in. We appreciate your support of the pod. Jack, any final thoughts?
No, other than obviously World Cup starts Thursday, and let's hope that it's finally the one where it's coming home. I don't know how confident I am by it, but as I say, I'm sure once it all kicks off, I'll be getting stuck into that whilst obviously keeping on top of all NFL news.
Hopefully I'll be less miserable about it next week as well once it starts. But yeah, we are a week closer to the new NFL season kicking off. We'll still have plenty of more content between now and then to keep you entertained and up to speed with all the goings on in the league. But that is it from us for now. Thanks for listening to the Sunday League UK NFL podcast, and we will catch you next week.